Table 17-inch. The crystal chandeliers of Euphoria cast fractured light across Seoul's most exclusive dining room, where power brokers and their companions paid 3 million won per person to be seen. Tamara Jefferson had learned to read the room in her 6 months working here. The nervous laughter of mistresses trying too hard, the bored scrolling of chaebol's children, and the sharp-eyed assessment of men calculating their next acquisition. She'd learned something else too, how to be invisible while standing in plain sight. Table 17 needs water, Manager Kim hissed, her perfectly lacquered nails digging into Tamara's forearm. The older woman's face had gone pale, a sheen of sweat breaking across her forehead despite the restaurant's meticulous climate control. Just water. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact. Don't, she paused, searching for words in English. Don't exist more than necessary. Tamara followed Kim's terrified gaze to the corner booth, separated from the main floor by frosted glass panels that somehow made it more prominent rather than less. She could make out 4 silhouettes, 3 men in dark suits flanking a fourth whose posture suggested he'd never questioned his right to any space he occupied. It's just water, Tamara said, keeping her voice neutral. She'd dealt with difficult customers before. In Atlanta, she'd waited tables at places where NFL players and rappers threw money around like confetti and expected you to grovel for it. She'd learned that the trick was professional distance, polite enough to avoid complaint, detached enough to avoid entanglement. You don't understand. Kim's whisper carried genuine fear. That's Lee Jun-suk. The name meant nothing to Tamara, which apparently showed on her face because Kim's expression shifted from fear to something closer to pity. Just, be careful. Tamara filled a crystal pitcher, balanced it on a tray with 4 glasses, and made her way across the dining room. She trained herself not to hear the whispers that followed her, the curiosity about the black American waitress in a restaurant that catered to Korea's elite, the speculation about how she'd gotten hired, and the assumptions about why. 6 months, and she still felt the weight of every gaze, but she'd also learned that most people's attention was shallow. They looked, they wondered, and they moved on. She reached table 17 and smoothly set down the glasses, keeping her eyes on her task. Professional. Efficient. Invisible. Water. His voice was unexpected, not the gruff bark she'd anticipated, but something quieter, almost curious. Yes, sir. She poured, the water catching the light like liquid diamonds. In her peripheral vision, she registered expensive suits, the gleam of a watch that probably cost more than her yearly salary, and the tension in the shoulders of the 3 men who weren't speaking. You're American. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes, sir. How long in Seoul? 6 months, sir. She finished pouring and set the pitcher down with practiced precision. Will there be anything else? Silence. The kind that stretched and pulled, demanding to be filled. Tamara had learned this game too, the power play of making service workers wait, watching them squirm. She didn't squirm. She simply waited, patient and present but not particularly interested in whether he answered. What's your name? Tamara, sir. I'll check on your entries. She turned to leave, and that's when she felt it, the shift in the air, the surprise that she could practically taste. Behind her, one of the other men said something in rapid Korean, his tone carrying a note of disbelief. She didn't speak much Korean yet, but she'd learned to recognize the cadence of men discussing women. Usually, it made her jaw tight and her hands clench. Tonight, it just made her tired. She was halfway across the dining room when she heard it, a sound that might have been a laugh, low and genuinely surprised, coming from table 17. Back at the service station, 3 other servers stared at her like she'd just walked through fire. What did you say to him? Ji-won, one of the few servers who'd been kind to her, looked genuinely worried. I poured water and asked if he needed anything else. That's it. That's it. Ji-won exchanged glances with the others, with some conversation happening in Korean too fast for Tamara to follow. Finally, she turned back. He's been coming here for 2 years. I've never heard him laugh. Tamara shrugged, already moving to check on her other tables. Whatever game these people were playing with their fear and fascination with table 17, she wanted no part of it. She'd come to Seoul to escape one kind of chaos, the aftermath of a relationship that had nearly destroyed her, the violence she'd witnessed, the version of herself she'd been trying to outrun. She wasn't about to step into another disaster just because some rich man had a nice laugh. But 3 hours later, when her shift ended and she walked out Euphoria's service entrance into the November cold, she found a black Mercedes waiting in the alley. The back window rolled down, and Lee Jun-suk's face emerged from the darkness, all sharp angles and knowing eyes. "Get in, Tamara Jefferson. We need to talk about respect." Her hand was already reaching for her phone, her body already backing away, when he added, "And about the man who's been following you home every night for the past week." Tamara's finger hovered over the emergency call button, her breath creating small clouds in the November air. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but his last words had frozen her mid-step. "The man who's been following you home every night for the past week. I don't get into cars with strangers," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Wise." Lee Jun-suk's face remained impassive in the dim light filtering from the Mercedes interior. "But I'm not a stranger. I'm the reason you're still alive." One of the men from the restaurant, the one who'd been sitting to Jun-suk's left, stepped out from the driver's side. In the alley's shadows, Tamara could now see what the restaurant's elegant lighting had softened the scar running from his temple to his jaw and the way his suit jacket hung loose on one side, presumably to accommodate a weapon. "Show her," Jun-suk said quietly. The driver pulled out a phone, tapped it twice, and held it out to Tamara. The screen showed grainy security footage, her walking down the street from the subway station to her office tel in Itaewon. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., 4 nights ago. She watched herself check her phone, oblivious to the figure that emerged from between two buildings 30 meters behind her, matching her pace, maintaining the distance. The driver swiped. Another video, different night. Same figure, same careful distance. Another swipe. This time the footage was clearer, shot from a different angle. The figure was a man, mid-30s maybe, wearing a black jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. But it was the next image that made Tamara's stomach drop, a zoomed-in shot showing something in the man's hand. Even in the grainy footage, she recognized the shape. A knife. "Who is he?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Someone who followed you from Atlanta." Jun-suk's tone was matter-of-fact, discussing a weather pattern rather than a threat to her life. "Kim Marcus. Your ex-boyfriend's associate. The one who witnessed you giving testimony to the district attorney about Andre's trafficking operation." The world tilted. Tamara pressed her palm against the alley's brick wall, the cold seeping through her jacket doing nothing to stop the sudden heat flooding her face. Marcus. She remembered him, quiet, always in the background when Andre held court, the kind of man who faded into furniture until you needed him not to. "How do you know?" Jun-suk finished. "Because 2 weeks ago, Kim Marcus entered South Korea on a tourist visa. Because he's been asking questions in Itaewon's expat bars about a black American woman who works in fine dining. Because 3 days ago, he bought a knife from a shop in Gwangjang Market." He paused. "And because yesterday, one of my people intercepted him 6 blocks from your apartment, carrying that knife and a bottle of lighter fluid." Tamara's knees felt weak. She'd been so careful. New country, new name on her apartment lease, cash-only payments for anything that mattered, and a phone purchased in Seoul with no connection to her old life. She'd thought distance and discretion would be enough. She'd thought she was safe. Where is he now? Alive. Contained. But I cannot keep him that way indefinitely without causing problems I'd prefer to avoid. Jun-suk shifted slightly, and for the first time, she saw his face fully in the light. Younger than his reputation suggested, mid-30s at most, with features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so carefully controlled. "Which brings us to why you're going to get in this car." "I should go to the police." "And tell them what?" "That a man you can't prove you know followed you from America for reasons connected to a criminal trial that's sealed? That you're living under a false name on a tourist visa that expired 2 months ago." His voice remained gentle, almost sympathetic. "The police will detain you for immigration violations before they do anything about Marcus. And while you're being processed for deportation, Marcus will wait. Men like him are patient." He was right. Tamara's visa had expired in September. She'd been saving money, trying to figure out the legal maze of extending her stay, hoping she could find an employer willing to sponsor her. The restaurant paid her under the table, good money, but nothing official, nothing that gave her legal standing. She was trapped, And somehow this stranger had known it before she'd fully admitted it to herself. What do you want? A conversation. 30 minutes of your time, and then a decision. Jun-suk's expression didn't change, but something in his voice softened almost imperceptibly. I'm offering you protection, Tamara Jefferson. Real protection. But protection in my world comes with a price. The driver opened the rear passenger door, the interior light spilling across the alley's wet pavement. Tamara thought about Marcus, about the knife, and about the lighter fluid. She thought about Andre's face when she testified, the cold promise in his eyes that said, "This isn't over." She thought about how far she'd run and how it still hadn't been far enough. She thought about the laugh she'd heard in the restaurant, surprised and genuine, the sound of a man who wasn't used to being treated like he was ordinary. 30 minutes, she said, and got in the car. The Mercedes smelled like leather and something else, sandalwood maybe, or cedar. Jun-suk sat across from her in the spacious back seat, separated by enough distance to be respectful but close enough that she could see the details manager Kim's fear had made mythical. He was handsome in a way that seemed almost deliberate, like someone had engineered him for maximum impact. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark and assessing, yes, but also tired in a way that seemed bone deep. I need someone inside Euphoria, he said as the car pulled smoothly into Seoul's late-night traffic. Someone who can move through that space without attracting the wrong kind of attention. Someone who already knows how to watch and listen without appearing to do either. You want me to spy for you? I want you to continue doing exactly what you're already doing, serving tables and being professional. Being invisible. He leaned back slightly. But occasionally, I'll need you to tell me who sits at certain tables. What they discuss when they think the help can't understand Korean. Who they meet with. Who they avoid. I don't speak Korean well enough to. You will. I'll provide lessons, intensive, private. In 6 months, you'll be fluent. He anticipated her next question. During which time you'll have a legal work visa, a secure apartment in a building with actual security, and a salary triple what Euphoria pays you under the table. It was too good. Nothing came without strings, especially nothing from a man whose name made veteran restaurant managers go pale. And Marcus will be on a flight back to Atlanta tomorrow morning. With incentive to forget you exist. Jun-suk's voice went flat, the warmth leaching out. Permanent incentive. Tamara swallowed. She knew what permanent meant in this context. You'd kill him. I'd ensure he's never a threat to you again. The method is negotiable based on your conscience. He tilted his head slightly. Does that disgust you? The idea that violence could be done on your behalf. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to be the person who recoiled from such casual discussion of harm. But she remembered Andre's hands around her throat, remembered the sound Marcus's boots had made on the warehouse floor when he'd stood watch while Andre taught her respect, remembered the detective telling her that her testimony might not be enough, that men like Andre always walked. What's the real reason? She asked instead. Why me? You could find a dozen people to do what you're describing. Why go through this trouble? For the first time since she'd entered the car, Jun-suk smiled, barely, just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. Because in that restaurant tonight, surrounded by people who'd kill for my attention, you treated me like I was boring. Do you know how rare that is? How valuable? I didn't mean to offend. You didn't offend. You were honest. Unimpressed. Real. He leaned forward slightly. Everyone in my life wants something from me, Tamara. They fear me or they need me or they're trying to use me. But you? You just wanted to pour water and leave. That kind of authenticity can't be faked. And in the world I navigate, authenticity is rarer than diamonds. The car was slowing now, pulling up to a building Tamara didn't recognize. Modern, glass-fronted, discreetly expensive. The driver parked but made no move to get out. If you say yes, Jun-suk continued, your life becomes complicated. You'll be associated with me, which comes with dangers you can't fully understand yet. You'll see things that will challenge whatever moral certainty you're clinging to. You'll be asked to make choices that don't have clean answers. He paused. But you'll be safe. You'll be legally protected. And you'll be paid well enough to build whatever life you want when this arrangement ends. And if I say no, I'll still deal with Marcus. I'll give you 1 month's salary to help you relocate. And I'll wish you luck, which is all I'll be able to offer once you walk away. His expression remained neutral. But Marcus isn't your only problem. Andre's trial concludes in 3 weeks. Win or lose, he'll come looking for you eventually. My protection extends beyond one threat. Tamara looked out the window at Seoul's glittering skyline, the city that had promised her a fresh start. She thought about invisibility, how she'd cultivated it as armor, how exhausting it was to maintain, how little it had actually protected her. Why does Table 17 need watching? Jun-suk's smile widened fractionally. Smart question. Because Table 17 is where Kim Sang-woo sits every Tuesday. Head of the Seoul prosecutor's office. Very interested in my family's business operations. Very stupid about where he conducts his confidential meetings. He watched her process this. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal, Tamara. Information isn't a crime. What I do with it, that's on me. 30 days, Tamara heard herself say. Trial period. If I don't like it, I walk away. No penalties, no threats. 30 days, he agreed. With one condition. You spend those 30 days learning to trust that I keep my word. He extended his hand. Tamara stared at it. Manicured nails, a thin scar across the knuckles, steady and patient. She thought about Manager Kim's fear, about Marcus's knife, about Andre's promises of retribution. She thought about being invisible and how it hadn't saved her from anything. She shook his hand. His grip was firm but not crushing, warm but not possessive. Just a handshake. Just a deal. Welcome to the Grey, Tamara Jefferson, Jun-suk said softly. Try not to lose yourself here. The driver opened her door. She stepped out onto the sidewalk, the November wind cutting through her jacket. She turned back, meaning to ask about next steps, about how this would actually work. But Jun-suk was already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean. His attention shifted completely as if she'd already stopped existing. The door closed. The Mercedes pulled away, leaving her standing outside an unfamiliar building with a key card the driver had pressed into her hand. Tamara looked down at the card. Apartment 804. Below the number, embossed in silver, property of JSK Holdings. She looked up at the building, then at the card, then at the disappearing taillights of the Mercedes. 30 days, she told herself. Just 30 days to figure out if she'd just made a deal with someone who could save her or someone who'd destroy what was left of her soul. Inside the building's lobby, the security guard nodded at her like he'd been expecting her. Like she already belonged. The elevator was mirrored on all sides. Tamara watched her reflection multiply into infinity. One woman, endless copies, all of them looking uncertain about which way was out. The doors closed with a soft whisper, and the elevator began to rise. Apartment 804 was a cage made of luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Namsan Tower. The kitchen had appliances Tamara didn't know the names for, and the bedroom's walk-in closet was larger than her entire office-tel had been. She'd stood in the doorway that first night, shopping bags from expensive stores she'd never entered lining the hallway, clothes in her exact size, shoes that fit perfectly, toiletries that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Someone had measured her without her knowing. Someone had been watching long before she'd poured water at table 17. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it just made her tired. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, sitting in the apartment's second bedroom that had been converted into a study, Tamara listened to Professor Yoon conjugate verbs with the mechanical precision of someone who'd repeated the same lesson 1,000 times. Again, Yoon said, not unkindly. How would you say, the prosecutor sits at the corner table every Tuesday? Tamara repeated, the sounds feeling less foreign on her tongue than they had 2 weeks ago. Yoon had been coming 6 days a week, 4 hours each session, drilling vocabulary and grammar with the intensity of someone training a soldier rather than teaching a language. Good. Now informal speech, as you would say to a friend. Yoon nodded, made a note in her tablet. Your pronunciation is improving. But you're still thinking in English first. In 1 month, you won't have time to translate. You need to hear and understand simultaneously. She stood, gathering her materials. Tomorrow we focus on restaurant terminology, specific words for cuts of meat, wine regions, and cooking methods. If you're going to be invisible, you need to blend seamlessly into that environment. After Yoon left, Tamara stood at the window watching Seoul's evening lights multiply across the Han River. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, but she'd learned to recognize Jun-suk's communication style. Taos, direct, no greeting or signature. Euphoria. Thursday 7 p.m. Table 12. Man in a gray suit with a red tie. Note who he meets. Note what they drink. Note when they leave and which direction. She typed back, understood. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. Then, how are the Korean lessons? Tamara stared at the question. In 3 weeks of this arrangement, Jun-suk had never asked her anything personal. Instructions arrived via text. Payment appeared in her account like clockwork. Twice she'd seen him at Euphoria, and both times he'd treated her with the same polite indifference he'd show any server. Intensive, she wrote back. Good. Language is freedom. Don't waste it. Before she could respond, another message. Marcus returned to Atlanta. Enrolled in rehab. Career change to construction. No contact with Andre's associates. He won't bother you again. Tamara's hands tightened on the phone. Won't bother could mean many things in Jun-suk's world. But the specificity, rehab, construction, a complete life change, suggested something more complex than violence. Suggested leverage rather than elimination. Thank you, she typed, then deleted it. Then typed it again and hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came immediately, don't thank me yet. Real work starts tomorrow. Thursday evening, Euphoria hummed with its usual symphony of wealth and ambition. Tamara had learned to distinguish the different species of power that frequented the restaurant. Old money moved with entitled ease, new money compensated with loud laughter and expensive watches, and criminal money sat quiet and observant, always aware of exits. Table 12 held new money. The man in the grey suit with the red tie was younger than most of Euphoria's clientele, early 30s maybe, with the overly groomed appearance of someone performing success rather than embodying it. He'd arrived alone at 7:03 p.m., ordered a whiskey he didn't touch, and checked his phone every 30 seconds. Tamara refilled water glasses at the adjacent table, her body angled to keep table 12 in her peripheral vision. Ji-won had taught her this trick, how to observe while appearing to focus elsewhere, how to turn service into surveillance. At 7:47 p.m., the man's guest arrived. Tamara felt the shift before she saw him, the way the restaurant's ambient noise seemed to pause and resettle, the way manager Kim's expression went carefully blank. She turned with her water pitcher, saw the new arrival being escorted to table 12, and felt her professional composure slip for just a moment. The guest was a woman in her mid-40s, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Tamara's monthly salary. But it wasn't her appearance that made Tamara's breath catch, it was the recognition. She'd seen this woman before, not in person but in photos plastered across Korean news sites during her first weeks in Seoul, when she'd been trying to understand the country that had become her refuge. Prosecutor General Han Ji-woo. The most powerful woman in Korean law enforcement. The person leading the investigation into organized crime families in Seoul. The person investigating Jun-suk's family. Tamara forced herself to move naturally, to continue her rounds, to be the invisible server she'd trained herself to become. But her mind raced. Why would Prosecutor General Han be meeting secretly with a nervous nobody in a grey suit at a restaurant known for discretion? Why here, where Jun-suk's eyes were everywhere? Unless that was precisely the point. Unless Han wanted to be seen. Unless this entire meeting was a message. Tamara circled back toward table 12, took a chance, and spoke in careful Korean. May I offer you the wine list? Grey suit looked annoyed at the interruption. Han Ji-woo looked directly at Tamara for 3 seconds, her expression unreadable, then smiled with perfect professional courtesy. Water only, thank you. Of course. Tamara poured, her hands steady despite the pressure of that assessing gaze. As she reached across to fill Han's glass, she heard Grey suit speak in Korean, his voice pitched low but not quite low enough. The files you requested. Everything from 2019 to present. Han's smile never wavered. Excellent. And the witnesses? 3 willing to testify. 2 in protective custody. 1 still, negotiating. Tamara finished pouring, stepped back, and bowed slightly. Please enjoy your evening. As she walked away, she felt Han's eyes follow her. The weight of that attention was different from other stares Tamara had endured, not objectifying or dismissive, but calculating. The gaze of someone who noticed everything and forgot nothing. In the service station, Tamara's hands shook as she set down the pitcher. Jiwon appeared at her elbow, speaking English in an urgent whisper. Are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost. I'm fine. Just tired. But she wasn't fine. Because she'd just served water to the woman trying to destroy Junsook's family. She'd just overheard something about files and witnesses and protective custody. She'd just become exactly what Junsook had hired her to be, a spy in plain sight. And the realization made her feel sick. At 11 p.m., Manager Kim pulled Tamara aside as her shift ended. Mr. Lee requests your presence. He's waiting in the private room on the 3rd floor. Tamara had never been to the 3rd floor. In 6 months at Euphoria, she'd learned it was reserved for meetings that needed absolute discretion, accessible only by a separate elevator that required a key card. The kind of place where Seoul's real business happened, away from the performance of the main dining room. The elevator opened onto a hallway decorated in dark wooden muted gold. At the end, a door stood slightly ajar. Tamara knocked and heard Junsook's voice. Come in. The room was smaller than she'd expected, more study than conference room. Junsook sat behind a desk, 2 computer monitors casting blue light across his features. He gestured to the chow across from him. Tell me about table 12. Tamara recounted what she'd seen and what she'd heard. As she spoke, Junsook's expression remained neutral, but his fingers drummed once against the desk, a small tell she was learning meant he was processing something significant. The man in the grey suit, he said when she finished. Did you recognize him? No. Should I have? His name is Park Min-jun. He's a junior prosecutor in Han Ji-woo's office. Ambitious. Over-leveraged financially. Recently divorced. Junsook turned one of his monitors so Tamara could see the screen, a financial document and spreadsheets of accounts and transactions. 3 weeks ago, he started asking questions about my family's legitimate businesses. The restaurants, the real estate holdings, the import companies. Looking for discrepancies between reported income and actual cash flow. He's looking for money laundering. He's looking for anything he can use. But what's interesting is that he's looking alone. This meeting with Han, the secrecy of it, that suggests he's found something he thinks is valuable enough to trade for career advancement. Junsook's fingers stilled on the desk. You said he mentioned files from 2019 to present. Yes, and witnesses. 3 willing to testify, 2 in protective custody, and 1 still negotiating. Junsook was quiet for a long moment, his eyes focused on something Tamara couldn't see. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost reflective. 2019 was the year my father died. The year I inherited an empire I never wanted and responsibilities I couldn't refuse. It was also the year 3 people disappeared. Business associates my father had been negotiating with. Their bodies were never found. Tamara felt the air grow heavy. Did you kill them? No. I was in Singapore when it happened, attending a conference, surrounded by witnesses and security footage. But someone in my organization did, and the order likely came from my father before he died. He looked directly at her. This is what I meant about the grey, Tamara. I didn't order those deaths. I didn't commit them. But I inherited the consequences. I run an organization built on violence I didn't initiate but can't fully stop without destroying everything and everyone who depends on it. Why are you telling me this? Because you're about to make a choice. Junsook stood and moved to the window overlooking the restaurant below. Han Ji-woo is building a case against my family. If she has witnesses willing to testify about 2019, she has enough to bring charges. Not against me directly, I'm clean legally, or clean enough, but against key members of my organization. People who've been loyal to my family for decades. People with families of their own. He turned back to face her. Park Min-jun is the weak link. Ambitious, desperate, greedy. If I can compromise him before he gives Han everything he's found, I can delay this investigation, possibly derail it completely. How? By offering him something more valuable than career advancement. Money, protection, or leverage over Han herself. Junsook's expression was unreadable. But to do that, I need more information. I need to know what files he has. I need to know who the witnesses are. I need to know exactly what Han knows and what she's still trying to prove. Tamara felt her throat tighten. You want me to get close to him? To Park Min-jun? I want you to be visible in a different way. To catch his attention. To become someone he might trust, might confide in, might underestimate. Jun-suk moved closer, his voice dropping. You're a black American woman working in Seoul's most exclusive restaurant. To men like Park, you're exotic, intriguing, and completely outside his normal social sphere. He'll see you as neutral territory, someone he can talk to without political risk. You want me to seduce him for information. I want you to be present. To listen. To let him make assumptions about who you are and what you want. He paused. I'm not asking you to sleep with him. I'm asking you to be exactly what you've always been, a careful observer who knows when to be invisible and when to be seen. Tamara stood, her legs unsteady. And if I say no? If this crosses a line I can't come back from? Then you say no. You've fulfilled your 30 days. I've kept my promises. You can walk away tonight with enough money to start over somewhere Marcus and Andre will never find you. Jun-suk's voice was gentle, almost kind. But once you walk away alone. My protection ends. My resources end. You become just another person trying to survive in a world that doesn't care about fairness or justice. It was the truth stated plainly, without manipulation or threat. Tamara thought about Atlanta, about the warehouse where she'd witnessed Andre's violence, and about the detective who'd promised her protection that evaporated the moment the trial got complicated. She thought about invisibility as armor and how little it had actually shielded her from harm. She thought about Jun-suk's laugh in the restaurant, surprised and genuine, the sound of someone briefly forgetting the role they'd been born into. What happens to Park Min-jun if I help you? He gets rich and keeps his career. Just not at my family's expense. Jun-suk met her eyes. I'm not interested in destroying him, Tamara. I'm interested in redirecting him. Making him understand that loyalty to me is more profitable than loyalty to Han's crusade. And if he refuses, then he learns the same lesson everyone in Seoul's power structure eventually learns. There are consequences for targeting the wrong family. The gentleness left his voice entirely. I don't want to hurt him. But I will protect what's mine. Tamara walked to the window and looked down at Euphoria's dining room, at the people performing wealth and power like a choreographed dance. She'd spent 6 months learning to disappear in that space. Now Jun-suk was asking her to appear, to be seen, to use her visibility as a weapon. The irony wasn't lost on her. One condition, she said quietly. You tell me the truth. Not the convenient version. Not the carefully edited story. If I'm doing this, if I'm compromising whatever integrity I have left, I need to know exactly what I'm protecting and why. Jun-suk was silent for so long she thought he might refuse. Then he nodded, once, sharp and decisive. Every Thursday night, after you finish your shift, we'll talk. I'll answer your questions honestly. And you'll answer mine. What questions could you possibly have for me? How someone who's witnessed the worst of human nature still treats a monster with basic dignity. His expression was impossible to read. That interests me, Tamara Jefferson. More than it probably should. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw made his expression harden. You need to leave. Now. Use the service elevator, not the main entrance. Go straight home. Don't stop, don't talk to anyone. What's wrong? Han Ji-woo just requested a warrant for surveillance of this building. She's moving faster than I anticipated. He was already moving toward the door, gesturing for her to follow. Which means she knows I know about her meeting with Park. Which means someone in this restaurant is reporting to her. The implication hit Tamara like cold water. You think there's another spy? Someone else watching? I think Han is too smart to rely on a junior prosecutor's discretion. I think she's been running her own operation here, and tonight's meeting was bait. They reached the elevator. Jun-suk pressed the button, his other hand hovering near his jacket, near whatever weapon he carried. I think we just revealed ourselves by having this conversation in my private room. And I think you're about to find out exactly how dangerous visibility can be. The elevator doors opened. Tamara stepped inside, her heart hammering. Before the doors could close, Jun-suk's hand shot out, stopping them. Tamara. His voice was urgent, stripped of its usual control. Everything I've told you tonight, the truth, the plan, all of it, it stays between us. If anyone asks why you were up here, you say I was interviewing you for a promotion to floor manager. You wanted more responsibility. I was assessing your qualifications. Understand? She nodded, not trusting her voice. And Tamara? He stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. I meant what I said about protection. Whatever happens next, you're under my shield. Han can come for me, for my organization, for everything I've built. But she doesn't touch you. That's non-negotiable. The doors began to close. Through the narrowing gap, Tamara saw Jun-suk turn away, his phone already at his ear, his posture shifting into something harder, more dangerous. The elevator descended in silence. When the doors opened to the service level, Ji-won was waiting, her face pale. The police are outside, she whispered. Manager Kim is talking to them. They're asking about people who went upstairs tonight. Tamara's blood went cold. What did Kim tell them? Nothing yet. She's stalling. But Tamara. Ji-won grabbed her arm, her grip tight enough to hurt. One of the officers, he was showing her a photo. I saw it over her shoulder. It was you. They're specifically asking about you. Through the service entrance's small window, Tamara could see the police cars, their lights painting the alley in alternating red and blue. She counted 3 vehicles. Not a routine check. A targeted operation. Her phone buzzed. Jun-suk, stay inside. Don't run. Running makes you guilty. Another message immediately after. Trust me. Tamara watched Manager Kim's animated conversation with the lead officer, watched him gesture toward the building, and watched Kim shake her head emphatically. Then she saw something that made her breath stop. Prosecutor General Han Ji-woo emerging from an unmarked sedan, her expression calm and determined. Han spoke briefly to the lead officer, then turned and looked directly at the service entrance window, directly at where Tamara stood frozen. Their eyes met through the glass. Han smiled, cold, knowing, victorious. Tamara's phone rang. Unknown number. Against every instinct screaming at her to ignore it, she answered. Miss Jefferson. Han's voice was crisp and professional, speaking English with barely an accent. We've never been formally introduced, but I think it's time we had a conversation. About your employer. About your visa status. About the interesting timing of your arrival in Seoul and your connection to certain criminal investigations in Atlanta. Tamara's grip tightened on the phone. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then perhaps you can explain why Lee Jun-suk is paying for your apartment and your language lessons and depositing 50 million won into an account opened in your name 3 weeks ago. Han's voice sharpened. You're being used, Miss Jefferson. By a dangerous man with dangerous connections. I can protect you, but only if you cooperate. Only if you tell me everything you've seen and heard while working for him. In the window's reflection, Tamara saw Ji-won backing away, saw other restaurant staff watching from doorways, and saw her isolation becoming complete. She was trapped between a prosecutor who saw her as a criminal and a criminal who promised protection she couldn't verify. I need time to think, Tamara said, hating how weak her voice sounded. You have until tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., my office. If you don't appear, I'll issue a warrant for your arrest on immigration violations, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Han paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been genuine concern. He's going to destroy you, Miss Jefferson. Men like Lee Jun-suk destroy everything they touch. The only question is whether you'll let him do it willingly or whether you'll save yourself while you still can. The line went dead. Through the window, Tamara watched Han return to her sedan, watched the police cars pull away, and watched the alley return to its usual darkness. Her phone buzzed again. Jun-suk, what did she say? Tamara stared at the message, at the implied intimacy of him knowing Han had called, and at the surveillance capabilities that must be operating for him to know what happened in real time. She typed, she wants me to testify against you. Tomorrow morning, or she arrests me. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. Then, come upstairs. We need to talk about what happens next. Tamara looked at Ji-won's frightened face, at Manager Kim's careful distance, and at the other staff members who'd suddenly remembered urgent tasks elsewhere. She thought about Han's warning, about Jun-suk's promises, and about the impossible choice between two kinds of danger. She thought about invisibility and how it had never actually protected her from anything. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the third floor, and watched the doors close on Ji-won's expression of pitying horror. When the doors opened, Jun-suk was waiting, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled up, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost uncertain. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I underestimated how fast Han would move. I put you in danger." "You put me in danger the moment you offered me this deal." "Yes." He didn't flinch from the accusation. "But I also offered you the truth. So here it is. If you go to Han tomorrow, she'll use you to build her case, and then she'll deport you back to Atlanta, where Andre's people are waiting. She doesn't care about protecting you. She cares about destroying me." "And you? What do you care about?" Jun-suk stepped closer, and in the dim light, Tamara could see the exhaustion in his features, the weight of responsibilities he'd never chosen. "I care about keeping my people safe. I care about maintaining an empire that feeds hundreds of families. And yes, I care about you, Tamara Jefferson, more than is probably wise or strategic." "Why?" "Because you're real. Because you don't want anything from me except honesty. Because in a life full of performances, you're the only person who looks at me and sees." He paused, searching for words. "Something worth saving, maybe. Or someone worth the effort of being better than I am." Tamara felt tears threaten and fought them back. "I can't testify against you. Even if I wanted to, I don't know anything useful. I've been your spy for 3 weeks. I've learned more Korean grammar than criminal secrets. But you know about tonight. About Park Minute-jun. About the files and the witnesses." Jun-suk's voice was gentle but firm. "That's enough for Han to subpoena you, to put you under oath, to force you to tell a court everything you've observed. And once you're on record, you become a permanent liability, to me, to yourself, to any life you hope to build. So what's the solution? I can't run. I can't testify. What's left?" Jun-suk pulled out his phone, typed something, and then showed her the screen. "A plane ticket, Seoul to Tokyo, departing tomorrow at 6 a.m. A visa application for Japan, already approved. An address for an apartment in Shibuya. You disappear. Cleanly, legally, safely. Japan has no extradition complications with Han's investigation, and Tokyo is large enough to get lost in." He scrolled down, showing her a bank account with enough money to live comfortably for years. "You start over, for real this time. No connections to me, no obligations, no danger." Tamara stared at the ticket, at the escape route he'd prepared, and at the final severing of the complicated thread that had bound them together. "And you? What happens to you when Han realizes I'm gone?" "I survive. I always do." But his voice carried doubt for the first time. "Though I'll miss our Thursday night conversations we never got to have." "This is what you want? For me to just disappear?" "This is why I want you to survive." He closed the distance between them, and Tamara could smell cedar and something underneath it, fear, maybe, or regret. "You asked me earlier what I care about. The truth? I care that someone as genuine as you doesn't get consumed by the darkness that follows me. I care that you have the chance I never did, to choose a different life." His hand reached up, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Tamara felt her careful composure crack. "Take the ticket, Tamara. Get on that plane. Forget you ever met Lee Jun-suk." She should have said yes. Should have taken the escape he was offering, the clean break, the second chance at invisibility. But standing there, seeing the vulnerability he usually hid so carefully, Tamara realized something that terrified her more than Han's threats or Andre's revenge. She didn't want to disappear anymore. She wanted to be seen. By him. "What if I stay?" The words left her mouth before she could stop them. "What if I testify, but not the way Han wants? What if I tell the truth, that you've been protecting me, that you've kept your promises, that I've seen nothing illegal in 3 weeks of watching? That makes you a liar in Han's eyes. That makes you an enemy." "I've been an enemy before. I survived." Jun-suk's expression shifted, surprise, concern, and something else she couldn't name. Tamara, you don't understand what you're offering. Once you publicly align with me, once you choose my side over Han's investigation, there's no neutral ground left. You become part of this world. My world. Maybe I'm tired of neutral ground. She stepped closer, closing the gap he'd maintained. Maybe I'm tired of running and hiding and pretending I don't exist. Maybe for once, I want to stand somewhere and fight. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you offered me protection. When you kept Marcus from killing me. When you trusted me with information you could have kept hidden. Her voice strengthened. I've spent my whole life letting other people decide my value, my safety, and my future. Andre decided I was property. The police decided I wasn't worth protecting. You decided. She paused, meeting his eyes directly. What did you decide about me, Jun-suk? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, that you deserved better than what I could offer. But I wanted to try anyway. The distance between them collapsed. Tamara didn't know who moved first, her or him, but suddenly his hands were in her hair and her palms were pressed against his chest, and they were kissing with the desperation of two people who'd been holding back too long. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jun-suk pressed his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea. Probably. Han will use this against both of us. Probably. You're going to regret this. Maybe. Tamara pulled back enough to see his face. But I'm done making choices based on fear. So here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'll go to Han's office. I'll tell her the truth, that I work at Euphoria, that you've been a respectful employer, and that I've observed nothing illegal. And if she doesn't believe me, if she charges me with lying, then we'll deal with it together. Together. He tested the word like it was foreign. I've never done together before. Neither have I. Not really. She managed a smile. So we'll figure it out as we go. Jun-suk's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw made his expression harden back into the mask she recognized. I have to go. Something's happened. One of my father's old associates, the one Han mentioned as still negotiating about testimony. He just showed up at my office requesting protection. From Han. From whoever killed the other two witnesses in protective custody. His voice went cold. Han said 2 witnesses were safe. She didn't mention that 3 others have disappeared in the last month. Someone is eliminating her case, Tamara. Someone with access to police protection details and witness locations. The implications settled over Tamara like ice water. Someone inside her office. Someone feeding information to your enemies. Or to my supposed allies who think they're protecting me by cleaning up my father's mess. He moved toward the door, already shifting back into the role of organization leader. Stay here tonight. This apartment is secure. Don't go home, don't talk to anyone, and don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. Jun-suk. He turned back, and for just a moment, the mask slipped again. Tomorrow, when you face Han, remember this. I've told you the truth, even when it made me look weak. She'll tell you whatever serves her agenda. The question you need to ask yourself is which one of us you trust to keep you alive. He left, and Tamara heard the elevator descend and heard the building settle into quiet. She walked to the window, looked out at Seoul's endless lights, and wondered if she'd just made the bravest decision of her life or signed her own death warrant. Her phone buzzed one final time. Not Jun-suk. Not Han. A blocked number. The message was simple: he's lying to you. Check the news tomorrow. Then decide who to trust. Tamara stared at the text, at the implied threat, at the suggestion that everything Jun-suk had told her tonight might be carefully constructed fiction. She thought about his kiss, about the vulnerability in his voice, and about the way he touched her cheek like she might break. She thought about Han's warning: men like Lee Jun-suk destroy everything they touch. Outside, Seoul glittered with 10 million stories and 10 million lies and truths tangled together until they were indistinguishable. Tomorrow, she'd walk into Han's office and choose a side. Tonight, she pressed her fingers against her lips, tasting cedar and regret, and wondered if she'd just fallen in love with her own destruction. Tamara didn't sleep. She sat in the apartment's leather armchair watching Seoul transition from night to dawn, her phone clutched in her hand, The anonymous message glowing in the darkness, "He's lying to you. Check the news tomorrow. Then decide who to trust." At 5:47 a.m., her phone lit up with a news alert. She clicked it with trembling fingers. Breaking: body found in Han River identified as witness in major organized crime investigation. The article was sparse on details. A man, mid-50s, last seen leaving a police safe house 3 days ago. Cause of death undetermined pending autopsy. No suspects. But buried in the third paragraph was the detail that made Tamara's blood freeze. The deceased was reportedly cooperating with Prosecutor General Han Ji-woo's investigation into the Lee crime family's operations. She clicked another link. Then another. Each article revealed fragments. 2 more witnesses dead in the past month, both drowning victims, both involved in Han's investigation. The pattern was undeniable. Someone was systematically eliminating anyone who might testify against the Lee family. Her phone rang. "Jun-suk. You've seen the news," he said without preamble. His voice was rough and exhausted. "Tell me you didn't do this." "I didn't do this." No hesitation, no deflection. "But someone in my organization might have. Someone who thinks they're protecting me by eliminating threats. Someone I don't control as completely as I thought." "Who?" "I'm trying to find out. But Tamara, you need to understand, this makes your testimony today even more critical. Han will use these deaths to paint me as a murderer. She'll say I'm eliminating witnesses to protect myself. If you testify that you've seen nothing illegal, that I've been nothing but professional, it won't erase suspicion, but it might create reasonable doubt about her narrative." Tamara stood and paced to the window. In the growing light, she could see the Han River in the distance, the same river where 3 bodies had been found. "Or it makes me look like I'm lying to protect a killer." "Yes." His honesty was brutal. "That's the risk. That's what I meant last night when I said this was a terrible idea. You're about to walk into Han's office and choose between 2 impossible positions: help her build a case against me using circumstantial evidence, or defend me and become complicit in whatever darkness surrounds my family. Why did you kiss me last night?" The question came out raw, unfiltered. Was that real, or was that strategy? Silence. Long enough that Tamara thought he might have hung up. Then, "It was the most honest thing I've done in 10 years. Which is why I shouldn't have done it. Because now you're asking yourself if I'm manipulating you, if everything between us is calculated. And the hell of it is, I can't prove it's not. Then help me understand. If you didn't order these killings, who did?" "My uncle, Kim Dae-jung. My father's younger brother." Jun-suk's voice carried something close to despair. His old guard. "Believes problems are solved through violence. When my father died and I took over, I tried to move our operations toward legitimate business. Less violence, more strategic investment. But Dae-jung still controls the enforcement arm, the people who handle problems. I've been trying to phase him out for 5 years, but family loyalty runs deep in our organization." "So your uncle is killing witnesses without your permission?" "I think so. But I can't prove it. He's careful and smart. And if I move against him without evidence, I'll fracture the organization. Half our people are loyal to him, to the old ways. They already think I'm weak, too soft. If I accuse him publicly..." He paused. "It could start a war within my own family." Tamara pressed her palm against the cold glass. "This is what you meant about the gray. You inherited violence you didn't create and can't fully control." "Yes. But that doesn't absolve me, Tamara. I benefit from that violence even as I try to minimize it. I sleep in a house built with blood money. I eat food purchased with profits from suffering. There's no clean position here. Only degrees of guilt." Outside, the city was waking, delivery trucks, early commuters, and the machinery of normal life. Tamara thought about her own degrees of guilt, the testimony she'd given against Andre, knowing it would make her a target. The men she'd watched him hurt, the women she'd seen him exploit, and all the time she'd stayed silent because speaking up meant becoming visible, becoming vulnerable. "What time is it?" she asked quietly. 7:43. "Then I need to get ready. Han expects me at 9. "Tamara." "I'm not changing my mind, Jun-suk. I'm going to tell Han the truth as I know it, that you've been professional, that you've kept your promises, and that I've seen no evidence of criminal activity. She turned from the window. But I'm also going to tell her that if you're connected to these murders, if you're lying to me, then I'll testify against you myself. That's the only way I can live with this choice. That's fair. His voice softened. More than fair. More than I deserve. One more question. The plane ticket to Tokyo, is it still available? Always. Right up until boarding. If you change your mind at any point, during the testimony, after, whenever, that escape route stays open. Why? If I testify for you and then run, it makes both of us look guilty. Because I meant what I said last night. I care more about your survival than my reputation. He paused. There's a car waiting for you outside. The driver will take you to Han's office. After your testimony, regardless of what happens, he'll bring you back to the apartment or to the airport. Your choice. And if Han arrests me? She won't. I've made sure of that. Something hard entered his voice. Han may be righteous, but she's also pragmatic. She knows that arresting you without charges that stick would generate exactly the kind of public scrutiny her investigation can't afford. She'll pressure you, threaten you, and try to break you. But she won't detain you without cause. How can you be sure? Because I just sent her office detailed documentation of every immigration violation her own family has committed in the past decade. Her cousin's restaurant in Gangnam employs 6 people with expired visas. Her brother-in-law's construction company uses undocumented workers. She makes a big show of arresting you for visa issues, and suddenly her own family's practices are front-page news. His tone was matter-of-fact, explaining a chess move. Leverage, Tamara. It's the only language power understands. Tamara should have been appalled by the cold calculation and the willingness to weaponize information against innocent people. Instead, she felt a twisted kind of relief. At least his ruthlessness was predictable, honest in its dishonesty. I need to go, she said. Tamara. His voice stopped her. Whatever happens today, whatever you decide about me, about us, thank you. For seeing me as human, even briefly. That's a gift I didn't know I needed. The line went dead before she could respond. The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office was a brutalist concrete structure that radiated institutional authority. Tamara's driver, silent, professional, and terrifying in his competence, delivered her to the front entrance at exactly 8:52 a.m. A young prosecutor met her in the lobby, introduced himself as Assistant Prosecutor Choi, and led her through security and up 6 floors to a conference room with windows overlooking the city. Han Ji-woo was already there, sitting at the head of a long table, flanked by 2 other prosecutors Tamara didn't recognize. Miss Jefferson. Han stood and offered her hand with professional courtesy. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. Tamara took the offered chair, noting the recording equipment on the table, the stenographer in the corner, and the careful staging of the official process. This wasn't an informal conversation. This was testimony, on record, with legal consequences. Before we begin, Han continued in flawless English, I want to be clear about your rights. You're not under arrest. You're here voluntarily as a witness in an ongoing investigation. However, anything you say can be used in legal proceedings. You have the right to have a lawyer present, though you've waived that right by agreeing to this meeting. I understand. Good. Han opened a file folder, revealing photographs. Tamara recognized her own face, surveillance photos from outside Euphoria, from her apartment building, and from the subway. Let's start with the basics. How did you meet Lee Jun-suk? Tamara recounted the story, the water service, his surprise at her indifference, and the offer of employment. She kept her voice steady and factual, aware that every word was being recorded and analyzed. And what exactly does Mr. Lee pay you to do? Observe and report. Specifically, I note which patrons meet at certain tables, what they discuss if it's overheard, and who they arrive and leave with. Corporate espionage. Information gathering. Nothing I've observed has been illegal. Han leaned forward. In 3 weeks of information gathering, what have you learned? That Seoul's power brokers like expensive wine. That business deal happens over dessert. That prosecutors meet with their assistants at restaurants where they think they have privacy. Tamara met Han's gaze directly. I observed your meeting with Park Min-jun. That's why you called me last night, isn't it? Because you realized Jun-suk knew about your investigation before you'd made it public. One of the other prosecutors started to speak, but Han raised a hand, silencing him. You're very perceptive, Miss Jefferson. Yes, I became aware that Mr. Lee had been conducting surveillance of my investigation. Which raises the question, what did you report to him about that meeting? That Park Min-jun seemed nervous. That you seemed confident. That files and witnesses were mentioned, but no specifics were discussed. Tamara kept her tone neutral. I assumed it was connected to your investigation of the Lee family, but I wasn't told details and didn't ask. Didn't ask. Han's voice sharpened. You work for a man whose organization is responsible for dozens of murders, hundreds of crimes, and decades of corruption, and you didn't ask what your espionage was enabling. I work for a man who's kept me safe from someone who wanted to kill me. Who's paid me fairly and treated me with respect. Who's kept every promise he made. Tamara leaned forward. You want me to tell you he's a monster? Fine. Maybe he is. But he's been honest about his monstrosity. Can you say the same about your investigation? The room went silent. Han's expression remained controlled, but Tamara saw the flash of anger in her eyes. Explain that accusation. 3 witnesses dead. All drownings. All connected to your case. Tamara gestured at the folder. You told me last night that you had witnesses in protective custody. You didn't mention that someone was systematically eliminating them. If Jun-suk is as powerful and dangerous as you claim, how did he locate 3 people under police protection? Or... She paused, letting the implication hang. Is someone inside your investigation feeding him information? The 2 other prosecutors exchanged glances. Han's expression went carefully blank. Are you suggesting corruption within the prosecutor's office? I'm suggesting that maybe the situation is more complicated than good prosecutor versus evil crime boss. I'm suggesting that maybe there are other players in this game, and maybe you're so focused on taking down Jun-suk that you're missing them. Han closed the folder with deliberate precision. Let me tell you what I think is happening, Miss Jefferson. I think Lee Jun-suk saw a vulnerable woman, foreign, isolated, legally precarious, and decided she would make a perfect asset. Plausibly deniable, easily disposable if necessary. I think he's using your genuine gratitude for his protection to manipulate you into defending him. And I think when this investigation concludes and he no longer needs you, you'll discover exactly how disposable you are. The words landed like physical blows because they echoed Tamara's own fears. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Maybe I'm being used. But at least he's been honest about what he wants from me. You want me to betray someone who's protected me to help you build a case that might be compromised by corruption in your own office, all while threatening to deport me if I don't cooperate. Tell me, Prosecutor Han, which one of you is really treating me as disposable? Han stood abruptly and walked to the window. When she turned back, her expression had shifted, less prosecutor, more human. I had a sister, she said quietly. Younger than me by 3 years. Beautiful, ambitious, and wanted to be a fashion designer. When she was 23, she got involved with a man connected to the Lee family. Not Jun-suk, this was before his time, but one of his father's associates. He promised her the world, gave her gifts, and made her feel special. She paused, and Tamara saw genuine pain in her face. When she tried to leave him, he had her beaten so badly she lost sight in one eye. When she went to the police, they told her there wasn't enough evidence. When she threatened to go public, she received photos of her family, my parents, me, and my brother, with crosshairs drawn over our faces. Han's voice remained steady, but her hands were clenched. She killed herself 6 months later. Overdose. The official report called it accidental. It wasn't. The conference room felt too small, too close. Tamara's throat tightened. I'm sorry, she said, meaning it. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I need you to understand that my investigation isn't about career advancement or political ambition. It's about stopping a family that has destroyed countless lives, that has operated with impunity for generations because they are very good at making people believe they are civilized. Han returned to the table and sat down heavily. Jun-suk is different from his father, smarter, more strategic, and better at hiding the violence. But the violence is still there, Miss Jefferson. And eventually, it will touch you too. Then help me understand. If you know he's guilty, why do you need my testimony? Why do you need witnesses at all? Why not just use the evidence you've gathered? Because the evidence I have proves the organization's crimes, not Jun-suk's personal involvement. He's careful, always at least 1 degree removed from the actual violence. I need witnesses who can connect him directly to orders, to decisions, to knowledge of criminal activity. She opened another folder. These are the 3 dead witnesses. All were mid-level operatives in his father's era. All claimed to have information about murders committed under Jun-suk's leadership, not just his inheritance. Tamara looked at the photos, 3 middle-aged, ordinary-looking men. The kind of faces you'd pass on the street and forget. What did they know? One claimed Jun-suk personally ordered a rival's execution in 2021. One said he witnessed Jun-suk negotiate a drug trafficking deal in 2022. One swore Jun-suk was present during a torture session in 2023. Han's voice was clinical, reciting facts. All 3 went into protective custody. All 3 are now dead, killed in ways that suggest inside knowledge of their locations. Jun-suk told me about this. He said his uncle, Kim Dae-jung, controls the enforcement arm. That Dae-jung might be acting without his approval to eliminate threats. Han's expression sharpened with interest. He told you about Dae-jung? Yes. He said he's been trying to phase him out but can't move openly without fracturing the organization. And you believe him? Tamara thought about Jun-suk's voice on the phone, the exhaustion and frustration when discussing his uncle. The vulnerability when he'd admitted he couldn't control everything. I believe he was telling me something true. Whether it's the complete truth. She shrugged. I don't know him well enough to say. Han drummed her fingers on the table, thinking. Finally she said, I'm going to share something confidential with you, Miss Jefferson. Something that doesn't leave this room. The other prosecutors looked startled, but Han ignored them. We've had Kim Dae-jung under surveillance for 6 months. Phone taps, GPS tracking, and financial monitoring. He's definitely involved in the enforcement side of the Lee organization. But here's what's interesting. The 3 witnesses weren't killed by Dae-jung's people. The forensics don't match his usual methods. The timing suggests someone with access to police intelligence, not street-level enforcers. Tamara's mind raced. So either there's someone else in Jun-suk's organization we don't know about, or the leak isn't in my office. It's somewhere higher up the chain. Someone with access to witness protection protocols across multiple agencies. Han's voice dropped. Someone who wants this investigation to fail, not just because they are loyal to the Lee family, but because exposing the Lees might expose other connections, other corruption. You think the government is protecting them? I think certain elements within the government benefit from the Lee family's continued operation. They provide services, money laundering, political leverage, enforcement of deals that can't be made official. Taking them down completely would expose a network of corruption that reaches into the National Assembly, the police, possibly even the Blue House. The scope of it made Tamara dizzy. She'd thought this was about one crime family, one investigation. Instead, it was a web so complex that pulling one thread might unravel the entire system. So what do you want from me? She asked. If my testimony can't connect Jun-suk to crimes, if the real conspiracy is bigger than one family, what's the point of me being here? Han leaned back, studied Tamara with an expression that might have been respect. I want you to go back to him. To continue your information gathering. But this time, I want you to look for something specific. She slid a photograph across the table. An older Korean man, dignified, wearing an expensive suit. This is Assemblyman Hwang Shawoo, member of the National Assembly, chairman of the Justice Committee. Very powerful, very connected. We believe he's been taking bribes from the Lee family for years, using his position to obstruct investigations and influence judicial appointments. You want me to prove the connection? I want you to observe. If Hwang meets with Jun-suk, I need to know when, where, and what's discussed. If you can get me evidence of their relationship, of money or favors exchanged, it's enough to open a separate investigation. And once Hwang falls, his protection of the Lee family ends. Tamara stared at the photograph. You're asking me to actually spy. To actively gather evidence, not just observe. I'm asking you to help me dismantle a system that destroys people like my sister. Like you, if you're not careful. Han's voice intensified. You said Jun-suk has been honest with you? Then ask yourself this. Has he mentioned Assemblyman Hwang? Has he explained that his family's power doesn't come from violence alone, but from bribes and political manipulation? Has he told you that the legitimate businesses he's trying to build still involves corrupting government officials? The questions hung unanswered. Because Jun-suk hadn't mentioned Hwang. Hadn't mentioned political bribes or government corruption. His honesty, Tamara realized, might be selective, true in what he said, but incomplete in what he omitted. If I do this, Tamara said slowly, if I agree to look for evidence of Hwang's connection to Jun-suk, what happens to me after? Do I just go back to serving tables, pretending this conversation never happened? Do I testify in court against both of them? If we get enough evidence, you won't need to testify. We can build the case without exposing your involvement. Han paused. But you need to understand the risk. If Jun-suk discovers you're actively working against him, his protection ends. And despite what you think about his honesty, he won't hesitate to eliminate a threat. Even after last night. The words slipped out before Tamara could stop them. Han's expression shifted, surprise, then comprehension, then something close to pity. Oh, Miss Jefferson. You slept with him. I didn't, but denial felt pointless. The kiss, the intimacy, the vulnerability they'd shared, it all added up to crossing a line she couldn't uncross. Let me give you some advice, woman to woman. Han's voice gentled. Men like Lee Jun-suk are very good at making you feel special. At making you believe you're different, that you see the real them, that together you can overcome the darkness of their world. My sister believed that too. Right up until the man she loved had her beaten within an inch of her life. Jun-suk isn't. Isn't what? Violent? Dangerous? Capable of hurting you? Han shook her head. He's all of those things, even if he hides it well. The question is whether you'll recognize the danger before it's too late. Tamara stood, suddenly needing distance, needing air. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. Tomorrow morning, same time, you either bring me information about Hwang's connection to the Lee family, or you don't come back at all. Han's professional mask settled back into place. And Miss Jefferson? If you tell Jun-suk about this conversation, if you warn him we're investigating Hwang, you'll be charged as an accessory to corruption. Do you understand? Yes. Then we're done here. Assistant Prosecutor Choi will escort you out. The driver was waiting exactly where he'd dropped her off. He opened the door without speaking, and Tamara collapsed into the back seat, her mind spinning with impossible choices. Her phone buzzed. Not Jun-suk, Ji-won from the restaurant. Manager Kim wants to know if you're working tonight. Should I tell her yes? Tamara stared at the message. Normal life, continuing as if everything hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. As if she hadn't just been recruited to spy on the man who'd kissed her with what felt like genuine emotion. As if she wasn't caught between a prosecutor seeking justice and a crime boss offering protection. She typed back, yes. I'll be there. Another buzz. This time from Jun-suk. How did it go? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could tell him everything, Han's recruitment, Hwang's involvement, the theory about high-level government corruption. She could be honest, maintain the fragile trust they'd built. Or she could lie. Omit. Become exactly what he'd hired her to be, an observer who reported only what served her purposes. She typed, Han tried to pressure me. I told her what we agreed, that you've been professional, that I've seen nothing illegal. She wasn't happy but let me go. 3 dots appeared immediately. Are you okay? The question felt genuine and concerned. Or maybe that was just what she wanted to believe. I'm fine. Going home to rest before my shift tonight. Come to my office after work. We need to talk about next steps. Tamara stared at the message. His office. The private room on Euphoria's 3rd floor, where he'd kissed her, where he'd offered her escape to Tokyo. Where he'd been vulnerable in a way that had felt revolutionary. Okay, she typed. The driver caught her eye in the rearview mirror. Home or airport, miss? The choice was laid bare. She could go to her apartment, continue this dangerous game, and see where the path led. Or she could take Jun-suk's escape route, disappear to Tokyo, and leave both him and Han to fight their war without her. Home, she said. Then added, please. As the car pulled into traffic, Tamara's phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. The same one from last night. You had your chance to escape. Now you're committed. Welcome to the game, Tamara Jefferson. Try to survive it. She looked out at Seoul streaming past, millions of people living ordinary lives, unaware of the shadow wars being fought in expensive restaurants and prosecutors' offices. She thought about invisibility, about how she'd used it as armor and how little it had protected her. She thought about Jun-suk's words, I care more about your survival than my reputation. She thought about Han's sister, about Andre's violence, and about Marcus's knife and lighter fluid. She thought about the kiss and whether it had been real. The driver's phone rang. He answered in Korean, his expression going carefully neutral. He spoke briefly, then met Tamara's eyes in the mirror. Change of plans, miss. Mr. Lee requests you come directly to his office. He says it's urgent. What's happened? I don't have details. Just that it's urgent. Tamara's pulse quickened. Did something happen with Han? With the investigation? I really don't know, miss. But his tone suggested he did know, he just wasn't authorized to say. The car changed direction, heading not toward her apartment but toward Gangnam, toward Euphoria, toward whatever crisis had erupted in the 4 hours since she'd left Han's office. Tamara's phone rang. Jun-suk, his voice tight with controlled fury when she answered. Don't say anything. Don't acknowledge anything. Just listen. He paused. Someone leaked your testimony to the media. Edited footage of you entering and leaving the prosecutor's office. The story is everywhere. American woman working for the Lee crime family forced to testify. Your face is on every news site. Tamara's vision tunneled. How? I said don't talk. Just listen. His voice softened fractionally. This was deliberate. Someone wants you exposed, vulnerable. It could be Han, applying pressure. It could be my uncle, trying to eliminate you as a variable. It could be whoever's been killing witnesses, expanding their target list. He took a breath. Bottom line, you're not safe at your apartment, not safe on the street, not safe anywhere public. You need to come here now. We'll figure out protection after. Through the car window, Tamara saw they were passing a convenience store with a TV visible through the window. Her own face stared back at her from the screen, grainy surveillance footage of her walking into the prosecutor's office. Jun-suk, I can't, this is. I know you're scared. But Tamara, I will keep you safe. That's not a promise, it's a fact. Nobody touches you while you're under my protection. Do you understand? She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that his promise of protection was absolute, that his power could actually shield her from the chaos she'd stumbled into. But she remembered Han's words, eventually, it will touch you too. I'm almost there, she said quietly. Good. I'll be waiting. The line went dead. Tamara's hands trembled as she lowered the phone. Outside, Seoul continued its ordinary day, traffic, pedestrians, and the mundane machinery of life. But she could feel the shift, the way her visibility had changed from neutral to dangerous. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was marked. The car pulled into Euphoria's private garage, and Tamara saw why they'd used this entrance. The front of the restaurant was surrounded by news vans, reporters, and cameras. Her face was still on the screens, alongside photos of Jun-suk, Han, and the Lee family compound. The driver opened her door. The elevator goes directly to the 3rd floor. Mr. Lee is waiting. Tamara stepped out, her legs unsteady. The elevator doors opened immediately, as if Jun-suk had been watching, waiting. She stepped inside, and as the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored walls, disheveled, frightened, utterly exposed. The elevator rose. When the doors opened, Jun-suk was there, and the careful control he usually maintained had cracked. He pulled her out of the elevator, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes searching her face. Are you hurt? Did anyone follow you? Did Han threaten you directly? I'm fine. I'm Jun-suk. What's happening? How did the media get that footage? He guided her into his office, closed the door, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw him look genuinely rattled. Someone inside Han's investigation leaked it. We're trying to identify who, but it doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you've just become the most interesting person in Seoul, to the media, to Han, to my enemies, to every person who wants leverage against me or her. Tamara sank into a chair. So what do we do? We have 3 options. Jun-suk began pacing, his mind visibly working through scenarios. 1. You disappear. The Tokyo flight leaves in 4 hours. New identity, new life, you're gone before anyone can locate you. 2. You go public. Hold a press conference, explain you were an innocent employee caught between 2 powerful forces, and plead ignorance of everything. 3. You stay with me. Accept my full protection, which means moving into my house, constant security, and no public appearances until this blows over. Each option carried impossible consequences. What do you think I should do? He stopped pacing and looked at her directly. I think you should get on that plane. I think you should run as far and as fast as you can, because what comes next is going to be ugly. Han will double down, and my uncle will see you as a liability. Whoever's killing witnesses might decide you're next. The safest choice is Tokyo. That's what you think I should do. What do you want me to do? The question hung between them. Jun-suk crossed to the window, his back to her, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I want you to stay. I want you to trust me when I say I'll protect you. I want. He turned back, and the vulnerability in his expression was almost painful to witness. I want more time with someone who treats me like I'm human. But wanting something doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it safe. Doesn't justify putting you in danger for my own selfish reasons. Tamara stood and walked to him. In the light streaming through the window, she could see the details usually hidden by his careful presentation. The scar on his left temple, faint but present. The exhaustion around his eyes suggested years of inadequate sleep. The tension in his jaw from holding too much control for too long. Last night, she said quietly, when you kissed me. Was that real? Yes. No hesitation? No calculation. The kiss was real. The feeling behind it was real. He reached up, cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about who he was supposed to be. But Tamara, my feelings don't change the reality. I'm dangerous to be close to. People around me get hurt. Not because I want them to, but because violence follows power, and I have too much power to ever be truly safe. What if I don't want to be safe? The words came out before she could fully think them through. What if I'm tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of letting other people's violence dictate my choices? Then you're about to make the same mistake a dozen other people have made, thinking you can stand close to fire without getting burned. Maybe. She pressed her hand over his, keeping his palm against her cheek. Or maybe I'm finally making the first real choice of my life. Not running from danger, not hiding from consequences, but standing somewhere and saying, here, this is where I fight. Jun-suk's control finally cracked completely. He kissed her again, harder this time, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feeling before it was taken away. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead against hers. If you stay, if you choose this, I need you to understand what that means. You become mine to protect. Mine to shield. Mine to. He paused, searching for words. Mine to care about in ways that make me weak, that make me vulnerable, that compromise every strategic instinct I've developed. Is that so terrible? In my world? Yes. Caring makes you a liability. Makes you a target. Makes you something people can use against me. His hands tightened slightly on her waist. But I'm going to do it anyway. Because apparently, I'm not as smart as I thought I was. A knock on the door interrupted them. Jun-suk's expression shifted instantly back to control. Come in. One of his men entered, the scarred driver from that first night. He spoke in rapid Korean, and Tamara caught enough words to understand. Hwang, meeting, tonight, location confirmed. Jun-suk responded in Korean, dismissed the man, then turned back to Tamara. Assemblyman Hwang wants a meeting. Tonight, 9 p.m., at a private location. His expression was carefully neutral. He's nervous about the media attention and wants reassurance that our arrangement won't be exposed. Tamara's heart rate spiked. Han's target. The connection she'd been asked to prove. And here was Jun Suk, casually confirming it existed. Your arrangement? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Political protection. Financial support for his campaigns in exchange for his influence over judicial appointments and legislative obstacles to investigations. Jun Suk stated it as a simple fact, business as usual. It's not personal corruption, Tamara. It's how power operates in Seoul. Everyone does it. That doesn't make it right. No. But it makes it necessary. He studied her face. You're thinking about Han's investigation. About how this information could help her build a case. It wasn't a question. Tamara's carefully maintained poker face must have slipped. Yes, she admitted. She asked me about Hwang specifically. Asked if I'd observed any connection between him and your family. Instead of anger or suspicion, Jun Suk just looked tired. And what did you tell her? That I'd only been watching for 3 weeks. That I hadn't seen anything conclusive. The lie felt heavy on her tongue. But Jun Suk, if she already knows about Hwang, if she's specifically asking about him, then she has suspicions but no proof. And she's hoping you'll provide it. He walked back to his desk and pulled out a file folder. Here's everything I know about Han's investigation of Hwang. Phone records showing calls between his office and my business lines. Financial transfers that could be interpreted as bribes or legitimate business payments depending on context. Meeting schedules that suggest coordination. He held out the folder. Take it. Give it to Han. Help her build her case against Hwang, against me if that's where it leads. Tamara stared at the offered folder like it might explode. Why would you do that? Because I'm tired of playing this game. Because my father built an empire on fear and violence, and I've been trying to maintain it while pretending I can somehow make it clean. Because maybe Han is right. Maybe the only way to break this cycle is to let it all burn down and hope something better grows from the ashes. He set the folder on the desk between them. Or maybe I'm just testing you. Seeing if the trust we've built is real or if you've been working with Han all along. I haven't been, Jun Suk, I promise. I only met with her this morning. She asked me to spy but I didn't agree, I didn't. He held up a hand, stopping her spiral. I know. I have someone inside Han's office. I know she asked you to gather evidence on Hwang. I know she gave you 24 hours to decide. I know she threatened you with accessory charges if you warned me. The revelation hit like cold water. You've been watching me. This whole time, you've known everything I was doing. Yes. No apology, no justification. Just acknowledgement. Then this, us, last night, all of it was manipulation. You were testing my loyalty. No. He moved around the desk, closing the distance. Last night was real. This morning's knowledge changes nothing about what I felt yesterday. But yes, I'm testing you now. Because in the next few hours, you're going to make a choice that determines whether I trust you with my life or whether I send you to Tokyo on that plane. Tamara looked at the folder, at the evidence of corruption laid out like an offering. What's the test? What do you want me to do? I want you to be honest. Completely honest. No more strategic omissions, no more careful truths. I want you to tell me, are you working with Han? Have you agreed to spy on me? Do you plan to give her information about Hwang? The questions deserved honest answers. Tamara took a breath and steadied herself. Han recruited me this morning. She told me about her sister, about how your family destroyed her. She asked me to gather evidence on Hwang's corruption and promised I wouldn't have to testify if she got enough proof. She met his eyes directly. I didn't agree. But I didn't refuse either. I told her I needed time to think. And? Have you thought? I think. Tamara moved to the window and looked out at Seoul, at the city that had promised her refuge and delivered only complicated choices. I think Han is right that your family has caused real harm. I think her investigation is justified. But I also think she's using me, just like you're using me, just like everyone in this city uses everyone else. The difference is you've been honest about it. She turned back to face him. So here's my honest answer. I don't want to betray you. But I also don't want to protect corruption. If you're bribing government officials, if you're maintaining your power through illegal means, then maybe you deserve to face consequences. But... She paused, searching for the right words. But I don't think Han's investigation is really about justice. I think it's about revenge for her sister, which is understandable but doesn't make it right. Jun-suk listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he asked quietly, "So what will you do? Take the evidence to Han? Refuse to help either of us? Get on that plane to Tokyo?" "I don't know yet." The admission felt like failure. "I need time to figure out who I want to be in all this. Whether I want to be someone who helps build cases against corruption, or someone who protects the complicated humans caught in impossible systems, or someone who just walks away from all of it." "That's fair." Jun-suk picked up the folder and tucked it back in his desk. "Take your time. But Tamara, understand this. The meeting with Hwang tonight happens regardless of your decision. If you want to witness it, to see firsthand what kind of business I conduct, I'll arrange it. If you want to stay here and avoid the whole mess, that's fine too. If you want to go to Tokyo, the ticket is still available." "Why would you let me witness the meeting? If I'm potentially working with Han, that's the last thing you'd want." "Because I think you need to see the reality before you make your choice. Not the theory, not the abstraction, but the actual messy compromise of how power operates." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "I'm not a good man, Tamara. But I'm not the monster Han thinks I am either. The truth is somewhere in between, and you deserve to see it clearly before deciding which side you're on." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold and hard. "We have a problem. A big one." "What's happened?" He turned his phone so she could see the screen. A news alert. Breaking. Assemblyman Hwang Shiwu found dead in apparent suicide. Tamara felt the floor tilt beneath her. When? How? 20 minutes ago. His office found him at his desk with a single gunshot wound to the head and the weapon in his hand. Jun-suk was already moving, grabbing his jacket, and issuing orders in Korean to someone on another phone. This wasn't suicide. Hwang was murdered to silence him before he could be exposed. By whom? Your uncle? Someone protecting Hwang's other connections? I don't know. But whoever did it just eliminated Han's primary target and made both of us look guilty as hell. He grabbed Tamara's arm and pulled her toward the door. "We need to move. Now, Han will come for me within the hour, and anyone near me becomes collateral damage." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can think." He guided her back to the elevator, his hand gentle on her back despite the urgency. "Tamara, I need you to trust me one more time. Just a little longer. Can you do that?" She looked at his face, the careful control cracking under pressure, the genuine fear not for himself but for what might happen to her. She thought about Han's warning, about the dead witnesses, and about the pattern of violence that followed this family. She thought about his kiss and whether it had been real. The elevator doors opened. Jun-suk waited, hand extended, offering escape or deeper entanglement depending on perspective. Seoul stretched out below them, 10 million people, most of them safe in their ordinary lives, unaware of the shadow wars being fought over power and justice and revenge. Tamara took his hand. "I trust you," she said, and hoped it wasn't the last mistake she'd ever make. They emerged from the private garage into chaos. Despite using the back exit, reporters had somehow anticipated the route. Camera flashes exploded as Jun-suk's security surrounded them, creating a human shield as they moved toward the waiting car. Questions shouted in Korean and English blurred together. "Mr. Lee, did you order Assemblyman Hwang's death? Miss Jefferson, are you being held against your will? Is it true you're cooperating with Prosecutor Han's investigation?" Jun-suk's hand tightened on hers as they reached the car. He opened the door, helped her inside, and followed immediately. The security team formed a barrier as the driver pulled away, leaving the reporters scrambling. Only then did Tamara see Jun-suk's phone, still lit up with incoming calls and messages. And only then did she realize, they weren't running from the media. They were running from whoever had just murdered a government official and framed both of them for it. The car accelerated into Seoul's evening traffic, and through the rear window, Tamara watched Euphoria's lights fade into the distance. Somewhere behind them, Han was mobilizing. Somewhere ahead, a killer waited. And somewhere in between, Tamara Jefferson, invisible waitress turned unlikely spy, had to decide which kind of danger she was more afraid of. The known threat of a man who'd promised to protect her, or the unknown threat of everyone who wanted them both destroyed. "Where are we going?" she asked again, quieter this time. Jun-suk's answer was barely audible over the traffic. "The only place left where we might both survive the night." The house was hidden in Bukhansan's foothills, accessible only by a private road that wound through pine forests thick enough to swallow sound. Traditional Korean architecture merged with modern security, hanok wooden beams concealing cameras, paper doors backed by bulletproof glass, and gardens designed with clear sightlines. Tamara stood in the main room while Jun-suk's security swept the perimeter. The space was minimalist, beautiful, and utterly impersonal except for one detail, a photograph on the mantel showing a young boy, maybe 10 years old, laughing at something off camera. His face held none of the careful control she recognized in the adult Jun-suk. Just pure, unguarded joy. "My mother took that picture." His voice came from the doorway. 3 months before she died. Before my father decided I needed to become something other than a child. Tamara turned. He'd removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, and the casual intimacy of seeing him disheveled made her chest tighten. "How did she die?" "Cancer. Ovarian, stage 4 by the time they caught it. She lasted 6 months." He moved to the photograph and traced the frame's edge with one finger. "My father blamed himself. He said the stress of his lifestyle killed her. Spent the last decade of his life trying to make the business legitimate enough that I wouldn't lose someone I loved the same way." "Did it work?" "I don't know. I've never loved anyone long enough to find out." He set the frame down carefully. "Until recently, that felt like wisdom. Now it just feels like cowardice." The admission hung between them. Tamara's phone buzzed. She'd been ignoring it for the past hour, but this time she glanced. 37 missed calls. Texts from G1, from manager Kim, and from numbers she didn't recognize. And one from Han, "Last chance. Tell me where you are or face obstruction charges." "She can't actually charge me," Tamara said, more to herself than to Jun-suk. "I haven't obstructed anything." "She can charge you with whatever she wants if she's desperate enough. The question is whether the charges stick." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a cabinet and offered her one. "Hwang's death changed everything. Han's primary target is gone, her investigation is compromised, and now she's looking for someone to blame. You and I are convenient." Tamara accepted the glass but didn't drink. "Who killed him?" "Really?" "I don't know. But I intend to find out." He moved to a laptop on the low table and opened it. The screen filled with security footage, financial transactions, and call records. "Hwang was supposed to meet me at 9. Instead, he died at his desk around 4 p.m. The gun was his personal weapon, registered, and kept in his office safe. The only fingerprints will be his. It's textbook suicide staging." "Could your uncle?" "No. Daejung's methods are messier. When he eliminates someone, he wants them found in ways that send messages. This is clean and professional. Someone who wanted Hwang silent without drawing attention to the murder itself." Tamara moved closer and studied the screens. Someone with access to his office. Someone he trusted enough to let get close. "Exactly." Jun-suk pulled up another file, photographs of people entering and leaving Hwang's office building throughout the day. "These are from building security. Watch." He pointed to a timestamp, 3:47 p.m. A figure in a delivery uniform, face obscured by a cap and mask, entering with a package. At 4:02 p.m., the same figure was leaving, with no package visible. 15 minutes. Plenty of time to coerce a signature, stage the scene, and leave. Jun-suk zoomed in on the figure's hands. "But look here. No gloves. Professional killers wear gloves." This person was confident enough in their staging that they didn't worry about trace evidence. Or they knew their DNA wouldn't be flagged because they are not in any criminal database. Smart. He glanced at her with something like pride. "You're thinking like an investigator." "I'm thinking like someone trying not to get killed for asking the wrong questions." She set down her glass. "If it wasn't your uncle, and it wasn't you, then who benefits from Hwang's death?" "Everyone he had leverage over. Everyone who feared exposure through Han's investigation. Everyone who wanted to disrupt the political status quo. Jun-suk closed the laptop. Which is approximately 200 people in Seoul's power structure. We could spend months investigating and never find the truth. Or, Tamara said slowly, we could ask Han who else she was investigating through Hwang. What other connections did he represent? Jun-suk's expression shifted. Surprise, calculation, reluctant admiration. You want to work with her. I want to survive. And right now, the only way we both survive is if we figure out who's eliminating witnesses and framing us for it. She pulled out her phone. Han wants answers. I'll give her some. In exchange for information about her investigation. She'll never agree to share intelligence with me. She won't. But she might share it with me. Tamara met his eyes. If I go back. If I present myself as a witness willing to cooperate in exchange for protection and answers. Absolutely not. His voice went hard. You walk into Han's office right now, you're signing a confession. She'll use Hwang's death to pressure you into testifying against me regardless of what you actually know. Then come with me. We go together and present a united front. You offer to cooperate with her investigation of Hwang's murder in exchange for her acknowledging you're not responsible. She'll arrest me the moment I show up. For what? Being associated with a suicide victim? Having business dealings with a politician? Unless she has evidence connecting you to the murder itself. She doesn't need evidence. She needs probable cause, which Hwang's death provides. But Jun-suk's tone suggested he was considering it anyway. This is insane. You know that, right? Walking into the prosecutor's office voluntarily when we're both primary suspects. Do you have a better idea? He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, there might be one other option. Someone who knows Hwang's network, who has information about other players in Seoul's political corruption. Someone who might be willing to talk if properly motivated. Who? Park Min-jun. The junior prosecutor you served at table 12. He was Hwang's primary contact in Han's office, feeding information in both directions. Jun-suk pulled up another file. I've been watching him since your first report. He's terrified, over-leveraged financially, and as of 3 hours ago, missing from his apartment. You think he's running? Or hiding? Or already dead? Jun-suk stood and began pacing. But if we can find him before whoever killed Hwang does, he might trade information for protection. Tamara's mind raced through possibilities. Han said Park had files. Documentation from 2019 to present. If we get those files, we might understand who else was connected to Hwang, who else might have wanted him silenced. And we might finally understand what my father did that year that made 3 people disappear and created witnesses willing to testify against a dead man. His voice carried old pain. Whatever happened in 2019, it's the foundation of Han's entire investigation. And I've spent 5 years trying to bury it without knowing exactly what I was burying. The admission cost him. Tamara could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way he wouldn't meet her eyes. This was the truth he'd promised her. The honest acknowledgement that his inheritance included sins he couldn't fully account for. So we find Park, Tamara said. We get the files. We figure out what really happened in 2019 and who's willing to kill to keep it buried. We. Jun-suk turned to face her fully. You're really committing to this, to being my partner instead of my asset. I'm committing to finding the truth. Whether that helps you or damns you depends on what the truth is. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her close. The kiss was different this time, not desperate or uncertain, but deliberate. A claim, a promise, a point of no return. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, if we go hunting for Park and those files, we're putting a target on both our backs. Whoever killed Hwang will come for us next. They're already coming. At least this way, we see them first. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. We have company. 3 cars, approaching fast from different directions. Professional coordination. Tamara's heart slammed against her ribs. Police. Worse. He was already moving, pulling her toward a back hallway. Private security. The kind you hire when you want someone to disappear quietly. They ran through corridors Tamara hadn't seen, downstairs into a basement that opened onto a garage. A black SUV waited, engine already running, driver invisible behind tinted windows. "Get in," Jun-suk ordered, then spoke rapid Korean into his phone while pushing her toward the vehicle. Through the garage security monitors, Tamara saw the approaching cars, sleek, dark, and moving with military precision. The first one stopped at the gate. Men emerged, weapons visible. Jun-suk jumped into the SUV beside her. The driver accelerated before the door fully closed, taking an exit that led deeper into the mountain rather than toward the main road. "Where are we going?" Tamara asked, her voice shaking. "Somewhere they won't expect. Somewhere I swore I'd never return to." His face was grim. "My father's real safe house. The one he used for meetings that couldn't leave witnesses." The implications settled like ice in Tamara's stomach. "You're taking me to a place designed for murder." "I'm taking you to the only place in Seoul where we might survive the night long enough to find Park in those files." He grabbed her hand. "Trust me. One more time. Please." Behind them, through the rear window, Tamara saw the pursuit vehicles following. They hadn't lost anyone. They'd only bought minutes. The SUV plunged deeper into the forest, headlights cutting through gathering darkness. Somewhere ahead lay answers. Somewhere behind, death approached with professional precision. And somewhere in between, Tamara Jefferson held the hand of a man who might save her or destroy her and wondered if there was any meaningful difference in them all. The second safe house was a bunker disguised as a warehouse, 20 minutes outside Seoul in an industrial district where nobody asked questions. Concrete walls 3 feet thick, a single entrance, and no windows. The kind of place designed for interrogations that ended badly. Jun-suk's father had chosen the location well. Inside, the space was divided into rooms that told stories Tamara didn't want to imagine, hooks in ceilings, drains in floors, and soundproofing that had seen too much use. But there was also an office, surprisingly ordinary, with filing cabinets and a desk that suggested legitimate business happened here too. "My father believed in compartmentalization," Jun-suk said, watching her take in the surroundings. "Legal business in public offices. Gray area deals in private locations. And the darkest work here, where nothing could be traced back." "Did you ever?" Tamara couldn't finish the question. "Come here when he was alive?" "Yes." "Did I participate in what happened in those rooms?" "No. But I knew. I always knew." He moved to the filing cabinets and began pulling out folders. "After he died, I couldn't bring myself to destroy this place. Couldn't use it either. It's just sat here, preserved like a museum to sins I inherited but didn't commit." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and relief flickered across his features. "Park Minute-jun. My people found him hiding at his ex-wife's apartment in Incheon. He's agreed to meet. Says he has information about who killed Hwang." "Why would he tell you instead of Han?" "Because Han can't protect him anymore. 3 witnesses dead, Hwang murdered. Park knows whoever's eliminating people connected to this case won't stop until everyone's silent." Jun-suk checked his watch. "He'll be here in 30 minutes. In exchange for the files and his testimony about 2019, I've promised him a new identity, money, and extraction to Singapore. Can you deliver that?" "I can deliver anything if the price is right," he said matter-of-factly, not boasting. "Just stating reality. The question is whether Park is being honest or whether he's leading us into a trap." Tamara moved to the desk and noticed a photograph tucked into the blotter's edge. Young Jun-suk again, maybe 15, standing beside a severe-looking man who had to be his father. Neither smiled. "Tell me about 2019. What do you actually remember?" Jun-suk was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, 3 men disappeared that year. Business partners my father had been negotiating with about territorial disputes. I was in Singapore, like I told you, but I knew something was happening. My father called me twice that week, unusual for him. Both times, he sounded almost relieved, like a burden had lifted. "What did he say?" "That problems had been resolved. That I could come home to a cleaner operation. That the future would be different." He pulled out a bottle of whiskey from the desk drawer and poured 2 glasses. 2 months later, he was diagnosed with the cancer that killed him. It moved so fast the doctors said it must have been growing for years. By the time he died, I was in charge of an empire I barely understood, built on violence I'd spent my life avoiding. And your uncle, Dae-jung, handled the resolution of those problems. I've never asked for details. Never wanted confirmation of what I already suspected. He downed his whiskey in one swallow. But if Park has files from that year, if there's documentation of what actually happened, then I'll finally know exactly what sins I've been protecting all this time. A sound outside, a vehicle approaching. Jun-suk's security team radioed confirmation. Park Minute-jun, alone, in a taxi. The young prosecutor looked worse than he had at table 12. Hollow-eyed, unshaven, and wearing the same clothes from days ago. He clutched a leather briefcase like a lifeline. Mr. Lee. Park bowed nervously, his Korean formal and frightened. Then, seeing Tamara, you. The waitress. What is she doing here? Miss Jefferson is my associate. Whatever you tell me, she hears. Jun-suk gestured to a chair. You said you have information about Hwang's death. And files from 2019. Park sat and opened the briefcase with shaking hands. Inside were manila folders, USB drives, and photographs. Everything Prosecutor Han collected about your family's operations. Financial records, witness statements, surveillance logs. And this, he pulled out a specific folder, thicker than the others. This is what got those 3 witnesses killed. What got Hwang killed. What will get all of us killed if the wrong people know we have it. Jun-suk took the folder and opened it. Tamara watched his expression change, shock, then anger, then something that looked like grief. He handed it to her without speaking. Inside were photographs from 2019. Crime scene photos. 3 bodies, obviously tortured, dumped in a construction site. But it was the witness statements that made Tamara's blood freeze. Testimony from people who'd seen the murders. People who identified not Jun-suk's father or uncle as the killers, but someone else entirely. Someone with access to police resources. Someone with authority to move freely. Someone who'd been protecting the Lee family for decades in exchange for money and political support. The photographs showed the witness statements clearly. Detective Superintendent Cho Sang-minute, Seoul Metropolitan Police. Han's investigation was never just about your family, Park said, his voice barely steady. It was about exposing the entire network of corruption that keeps organized crime operating in Seoul. Hwang was the political connection. Your uncle was enforcement. But Cho was the crucial link: police protection, evidence tampering, witness elimination. Without him, the whole system collapses. Jun-suk's face had gone pale. Cho has been on my family's payroll since my father's time. I thought he just looked the other way. Filed reports favorably. I didn't know he was actively killing people. Your father knew. That's what the 2019 killings were about. Rival gang members who discovered Cho's identity and threatened to expose him. Your father ordered Cho to eliminate them before they could talk. Clean, permanent, untraceable. Park pulled out more documents. But 3 witnesses saw Cho at the scene. Your father paid them to stay silent. After he died, they thought they could renegotiate the deal with you. When you didn't respond. Because I didn't know they existed, Jun-suk interrupted, his voice hollow. Cho decided to eliminate the problem himself. Made it look random, different methods, different locations. But Han figured it out. She was about to arrest Cho when Hwang was killed. By Cho, Tamara said, the pieces clicking together. Hwang knew about the murders. About Cho's involvement. He was going to testify. Yes. And now Cho knows we have this evidence. Park stood, agitated. We need to get it to Han immediately. It's the only way any of us survive. Cho has police resources, loyal officers, and connections throughout the justice system. He'll come for us unless we expose him first. Jun-suk was staring at the photographs, at the documented proof of murders committed in his family's name by someone he trusted. All this time, I thought I was reducing violence. I thought I was making the organization cleaner. But I was just maintaining the same system my father built. Paying the same people to do the same terrible things. Tamara touched his arm gently. You didn't know. I should have asked. Should have investigated. Should have demanded to know exactly what I was inheriting. He looked at her, and the vulnerability in his expression was almost unbearable. You were right to question whether you should help me. This is what I've been protecting, not just gray area business deals, but actual murder committed by someone on my payroll. Then help me stop it now, Park urged. Give me permission to take this evidence to Han. Let me testify that you weren't involved, that you're cooperating fully. It's the only way to separate yourself from Cho's crimes. Jun-suk nodded slowly. Do it. Tell Han everything. About my father's arrangement with Cho, about the 2019 killings, about. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red. Jun-suk's security team started shouting in Korean, perimeter breach, multiple hostiles, someone had cut the power. Cho, Park whispered, terror in his voice. He found us. Gunfire erupted outside. Jun-suk grabbed Tamara and pulled her behind the desk. Park dove for the briefcase, clutching it like a shield. Through the office's reinforced door, they heard footsteps, coordinated movement, and the professional efficiency of trained operators. There's an escape tunnel, Jun-suk said urgently, pointing to a section of wall. My father's paranoia had one use. It leads to a garage 2 blocks away. Take Park, take the evidence, and get to Han's office. What about you? I'll hold them here. Buy you time. He pressed something into her hand, car keys and a phone. There's a car waiting, programmed with Han's office address. Drive straight there, don't stop for anything. I'm not leaving you to die. You're not. You're giving me a reason to survive. He kissed her hard, desperate. Go. Please. Let me do one completely unselfish thing in my worthless life. More gunfire, closer now. The office door shuddered under impact. Park was already at the wall panel, fingers shaking as he entered the code. Jun-suk shouted to him. The panel slid open, revealing darkness and concrete stays descending. Park disappeared into it immediately. Tamara hesitated at the threshold, looking back at Jun-suk. He'd pulled a gun from the desk drawer and was checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. In the emergency lighting, he looked both younger and infinitely older, a boy playing at being dangerous, a man who'd finally accepted what he really was. I love you, he said simply. I don't deserve to, but I do. So please survive this. Survive and remember that I tried to be better than I was. The office door exploded inward. Tamara didn't see who entered because Jun-suk was already firing, shouting at her to run, to go, to leave him. She ran. The tunnel was narrow, dark, and endless. Behind her, gunfire echoed and then stopped with terrifying finality. Park was ahead, breathing hard, the briefcase banging against his leg as he stumbled downstairs. They emerged in an underground garage. The car was where Jun-suk promised, a black sedan, engine running. Tamara threw herself into the driver's seat. Park dove into the passenger side. She drove like her life depended on it because it did. Through Seoul's late-night streets, running red lights, ignoring traffic laws, the briefcase full of evidence on Park's lap. Her phone, Jun-suk's phone, buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. Miss Jefferson. The voice was calm and professional, speaking perfect English. Detective Superintendent Cho Sang-minute. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Let's discuss terms for its return. And for Mr. Lee's continued survival. Tamara's hands tightened on the wheel. Where is he? Alive. For now. You have 1 hour to bring me those files, or I start sending you pieces of your boyfriend. The clock starts now. The line went dead. Beside her, Park was hyperventilating. He'll kill us both. Even if we give him the files, he'll kill us to tie up loose ends. Tamara looked at the phone, at the address programmed for Han's office. 40 minutes away in current traffic. But Jun-suk didn't have 40 minutes. She made a choice. Turned the car around. Started driving back toward the industrial district, toward the bunker, toward the man who'd promised to protect her and who now needed saving himself. What are you doing? Park's voice climbed toward panic. We have to get this to Han. It's our only chance. No, Tamara said quietly, certainly. Our only chance is if we stop running and start fighting. She dialed the phone. Han answered on the first ring. Prosecutor Han, this is Tamara Jefferson. I have evidence about who killed Assemblyman Huang and the 3 witnesses. I have testimony from Assistant Prosecutor Park Minute-jun. And I have approximately 55 minutes before a corrupt police superintendent murders Lee Jun-suk. She took a breath. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to meet me at these coordinates with every officer you trust absolutely. And we're going to end this tonight. Silence. Then, send me everything you have. And Miss Jefferson? Don't die before I get there. I have questions. Tamara sent the address, the photographs, everything. Then she drove toward the place where Jun-suk might already be dead, toward a confrontation with a man who'd killed without hesitation for decades, toward the ending she couldn't see but refused to run from. Beside her, Park whispered prayers in Korean. Above them, Seoul's lights blazed indifferent and eternal. And somewhere ahead, in a bunker built for violence, Tamara Jefferson's choice between survival and love would finally demand its price.